Hello, my name is Mike. Hey, welcome to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about Unexpected Season 5, Episode 10. And before the episode started, TLC showed a little black screen saying, "This program contains material that may be difficult to watch. Viewer discretion advised." Which I'm figuring this has something to do with Kylan and Jason, and if last episode wasn't bad, I imagine what's to come. And also, before I get into the video, I would just like to say sorry if this video is up a day later than I usually would have put it up. Life got a little busy, so sorry about that. But anyways, let's get into the video. We started with Kylan and Jason. Jason finally gives in and lets Kylan go to the hospital, and when they get there around midnight in the confessional, Jason says he's very upset because he did not want to go to the hospital. He says that because the doctors, nurses, and midwives suck, and just the whole hospital sucks, and it's really just a terrible experience for him. And he's even more upset because Kylan just couldn't stick it out and do it naturally, even though she was maternally exhausted. When you're maternally exhausted, it can lead up to a high-risk birth. While still in the confessional, Jason says that the hospital only cares about the women and they don't care about what the men have to think about when it comes to their child or just the whole labor situation. The hospital only cares about men and if they're married, and they treat unmarried couple like a friend. And that is completely wrong in my opinion. I've never been in the hospital for labor or anything like that, hopefully never have to be, but I'm pretty sure the whole point is to be focused on the woman because she's the one who's pushing out the child. I've gone over how stupid this is 100,000 times. And I'm just really exhausted with it, but you get my point. And going back to the scene, Jason says the whole reason why they wanted to do it at the birthing center is so they could do it naturally, and the nurses tell him that that did not work, and that's why she needs the epidural, because the nurse is recommending the epidural since she is maternally exhausted and she cannot eat nor sleep. And the nurse even says if she's in labor for another 12 hours, she probably will not be able to push this baby out. Getting the epidural right now is the best decision so Xavier can be born. Jason is still being stubborn and telling Kylan just to take a nap or deliver him like it's her choice. And the nurses express to Jason that it's her body and her choice and you have nothing to do with it, which TLC blocked out both in the nurses' faces, but whoever these women are, they need a pay raise. But anyways, Jason is just saying that he does not support drugs because the epidural has fentanyl in it, which I looked it up and it is true, but only has 2 micrograms. And if Kylan didn't want the epidural, they could have very much made it where she didn't have fentanyl in it. Something to remember is fentanyl is an overprescription drug that turned into a street drug because people started abusing it. The drug is not the problem. People abusing the drug is the problem. Jason speaks of fentanyl like it's a drug like cocaine or something when it's not. It's a prescription drug that you can get addicted off of, but an epidural is not going to make you get addicted to fentanyl. That's not how it works. Like I said, it only has 2 micrograms, and I'll put a picture up what a microgram is so you can see what I'm talking about, and that's a very little, and I highly doubt someone can get addicted off of that. But anyways, Jason's cousin Lizzie calls to see where Kylan is in labor and to see how she's doing overall, and she knows that she's maternally exhausted, and Jason tells her that she hasn't slept. And then Lizzie asks, has Kylan gotten the epidural? And Jason says no because he does not want her to get the epidural. His cousin Lizzie is trying to tell him that Kylan is in pain and she's so exhausted that she won't be able to push the baby out and it could put the baby in jeopardy. Jason's not listening because he's still stuck on this thing that epidural will make Kylan a drug addict. Lizzie ends up telling Kylan over the phone, don't listen to Jason, do what you feel is best for you. And Jason, of course, is still very upset, and while she's on the phone, Jason is holding a vape in his hand and he wants to talk about drugs. His lungs are probably dead already. But back to what I was saying, they do an in-person confessional with Lizzie. I don't know where they do this. I don't know if they do this at the hospital because she went up there, or if they found a random hospital to do this in-person confessional. But that's not the point. And she says in her confession that she doesn't know why Jason is acting like this, and she feels it's Kylan's body and she needs to make the best decision for her. I'm not sure why she's acting like she doesn't know why Jason's acting like this. This is who he is. This is what just shocks me. Everyone acts so oblivious to Jason's behavior, but they live with him on a day-to-day basis, and they see him on a day-to-day basis. So you're telling me a bunch of random people on TV can see it, but you can't. I find that very funny. But this is really sad to watch, and the even sad part about it is that this is probably a lot worse in person, and there probably a lot more stuff that happened off camera or on camera that they just didn't put in the show, and it's just so sad to watch. much. Enough Kylie and Jason. Next we move on to Emerson and Mason. Emerson is still fighting with her mom Eric about Mason and her being in the same bed. She goes outside to talk to her sister Abby about the whole situation, and Emerson ends up saying that she thinks she's gonna move in with Mason soon because she doesn't want to get lectured all the time from her mom and just be controlled under her mom. Then we go to a confessional with Erica and her husband's side, and they basically say the same thing they said in the last confession about how they don't feel Mason's home is safe and how they just disagree with Emerson's decision. And I find that very funny for Erica to be so hypocritical of Mason's home, especially home she's never even been in. And I feel like we could really be very judgmental of Erica's home because then she have like 5 baby daddies who I don't even know she gets along with. Then I also feel like Erica is entitled and just like one of those entitled middle class people who looks down on working class or lower class income because she feels like she's superior. What makes it even worse is that Erica was a teen mom as well, so she's been in Emerson's shoes, and for her to have been in Emerson's shoes and not support her and get her the support that she needs just makes it even worse, and puts the icing on the cake. But going back to this scene, they do an in-person confessional with Emerson's sisters Abby, and she says she just doesn't want to get in the middle of the two, and she also thinks Emerson just wants to grow up and do her. But I think the best thing for anyone to do right now is to support Emerson. And in the confessional with Emerson, Emerson says that even if she does make mistakes, at least it'll be a decision that she made and not a decision someone else made for her. She also says mistakes are good for learning purposes, which I agree with to an extent, even though some mistakes just shouldn't be made when you have a child because like put your child in harm. But I completely understand what she was saying. I would understand why she would want to get away from Eric. Next we went to Lily and Lawrence. So Lily's over her mom's house to visit. In the confessional, Lily says that the first couple of weeks was really hard for her because she realized how much her mom helped her with the kids, and now that she's all by herself it's even harder because Lawrence is not much help. When she's at her mom's house, her mom's just wanting to get updates, and she asks questions like, do you have a budget for groceries and stuff like that, and she says no, they just buy what they need. And I wonder how expensive their grocery bill is. Not that it's any of my business, but like I take Lily as the type of person, she'll pick up anything in the store whether she needs it or not just because she can't get it, so I'm pretty sure the bill would be high. But anyways, they're both really exhausted because Lawrence just started a new job and he's stressed about money and bills and taking care of the home, and Lily is taking care of the kids all day, cleaning and cooking. Then her mom asks about a wedding, and Lily says they're not thinking about having a wedding right now because moving was already really expensive and they do not have any plans on spending any money, especially because it's not in the budget right now. And Lily and Lawrence got engaged last year when Lily was 7 months pregnant when they did a maternity photo shoot. And in the confession with Lily and her mom says that she's happy that they put off marriage thing and it really haven't been taking it seriously. And going back to the scene, they talk about more marriage, and Lily ends up saying that her and Lawrence have been thinking about just going to the courthouse and getting the papers and having a wedding later on in life. Her mom did not like that idea because she felt like they've already moved at warp speed and just been taking things way too fast. They moved in together, they have a kid together, and it's just a lot for young couples to have. And her mom also talks about how if the relationship were to end, if they were to get married, then divorce is a pretty big thing, not only financially, they have to figure out how to do custody agreement and all that stuff. It says, who says I'm getting divorced? And her mom is just saying hypothetically and trying to hope for the best but prepare for the worst type of thing. So I understand where her mom is coming from on this perspective. Next we move on to Jenna and Aiden. Jenna's at her dad's house and they're talking about their annual beach trip, which they did not get to take their annual beach trip last year because her and her dad were still fighting. But they're gonna go this year, and Matt also wants to take Aiden fishing, and she's happy about that because she can get a break from Aiden's attitude because Aiden has an attitude problem. And while Jenna and Matt are sitting in the confessional, Jenna talks about Aiden's attitude problem, and Matt asks Jenna, can he say something? And Matt says that Aiden is a good father, a good provider, but he has an attitude problem and that can be an issue. And Jenna gets very annoyed when Matt said this, even though he just repeated what she said, so I'm not sure why she was so upset about it. Going back to the scene, Matt goes to talk about how he wants to squash the beef between Jenna's mom, Heather, and Jenna believes that it's too good to be true because they've never gone along her whole childhood, and she doesn't know if it'll play out well. I don't understand why they exactly need to squash the beef because Jenna's 18. There's no more co-parenting. And in my opinion, I feel like if they don't want to talk to each other now, they don't have to. They don't even have to look at each other. So I'm not sure why they feel like they still need to co-parent. But maybe because they have a grandchild, maybe they feel like since they're going to have to be in the same building at some point in time, they might as well get along. But if it brings Matt peace, that's all that really matters. Next, moving back around to Emerson and Mason. Emerson has officially decided to move into Mason's house, and Erica and Sai are taking her there. And when they get into the car, they end up talking about the whole situation and Sai just to get an understanding and see where it went wrong. The reason why Emerson is moving in with Mason is to start off with, she doesn't like being yelled at Erica and feel like being lectured all the time. So overall, she just feels like it's not a good environment. And her and her mom just can't agree because Erica feels like because Mason's mom is in recovery, she's like this bad person who's just gonna make bad decisions for the rest of her life. And Erica ends up saying she doesn't want Emerson to move out, and she even gets emotional about it. But she wants Emerson to follow these ridiculous rules when she has a newborn baby, so I feel like she kind of set herself up. She's the one who pushed Emerson away, and I don't think it was just like this one situation. I feel like it has built up over Emerson's whole childhood, and she just had the opportunity to leave this time. Erica has nobody to blame but herself. So we want Jen and Aiden, and Matt and Heather meet up and have a conversation and basically just clear the air and make it clear that they don't hate each other as much or as not anymore. And that's all that really happened in the scene, so there's really not much to talk about. Lastly, we move on to Kylan and Jason. Jason is still being a crappy person. He's still fighting this whole epidural thing, and it's time for Kylan to get her epidural, and Jason ends up saying, I do not give you consent to give child this medicine. And I find it hilarious that he thought he was really doing something right there was saying, I do not give you consent to give that to my child, because as long as Kylan gives them consent, they can do it, and it has nothing to do with his child anyways. Jason's very upset, and it gets out of control and becomes this really big thing. Jason starts flipping out, completely acting awful. He's flipping everyone off in the room. He's cursing, even to the point where security has to come in because the nurses realizing that it's getting out of control, and the doctor who is giving Kylan the epidural. He's refusing to leave, and he's trying to check Kylan out of the hospital before he leaves, because if he feels that he has to go, she has to go as well. But eventually they get him escorted out of the building. While they're escorting him out of the building, he calls his dad to save him, and of course there's nothing his dad can really do because he's at home waiting to see if the baby's getting here. But obviously I don't know if he'll get an update because Jason got kicked out of the hospital. And in the confessional, Kylan is crying because Jason is blaming the whole reason he got kicked out of the hospital because she got the epidural, and he's saying if she would never got the epidural and just did it natural, he never would have got kicked out of the hospital. So this is not true because Kylan did everything in her power to make sure Jason couldn't get kicked out of the hospital, and I figured I didn't mention that earlier, but Kylan was fighting against him getting kicked out of the hospital, and she was getting mad at the nurses, and even though the nurses were doing best for her and the baby, she was still defending Jason even when he was wrong. He says in the confessional that he was trying to give Kylan a kiss before I got kicked out of the building, even though he was still mad at her. I have no idea why he said that. I don't know if that makes him a good guy all of a sudden or whatever. He even says also that he can look like the whole bad guy in a situation, but he's not, even though he is, and we all know that. It's really sad to watch because Jason is blaming the whole situation on Kylan, even though her body physically could not do it anymore, and because he does not have an understanding of labor and how the woman body works, he wouldn't understand that. And I find it funny that he said in the previous episodes beforehand that he knows all this knowledge and stuff, but he doesn't use any of that knowledge he so-called knows. I don't know where he got his knowledge from, probably from Google, but I don't know why he thinks he knows more than the doctor does. The school for 10-11 years put themselves probably over $500,000 in debt, and Jason's supposed to know more than the doctors. Just really sad to watch for a couple of different reasons. First, Kylan, I think, is oblivious to what's going on, and I think she's heard before that this is an abusive relationship, so I think she's kind of heard it all. And I guess if she were to have to really understand that this is not a good relationship for her, she would have to be removed out of the situation. Obviously, that's never going to happen. And then my next thing is, how come the producers don't step in? This was no longer just them having a petty argument or them arguing about something. This was a safety danger, and something really could have happened to Kylan. So I wonder why no one stepped in. Maybe the producers are under some type of contract or something. I don't really know, but yeah, that was in the episode. I give this episode a 0 out of 10 purely because of Kylan and Jason and how terrible this was. And I have a question for you guys. Do you think Kylan and Jason should be removed off Unexpected? I kind of have an iffy opinion about it because I feel like, yes, this is terrible. This should not be put on TV. But then also, if Kylan and Jason were to get removed off Unexpected, Kylan would just fall flat off the face of the earth. I feel like we would never hear from her again because Jason also controls Kylan's social media, I believe. I don't think she's the one really controlling it. Just by the way like her caption is and stuff, I don't think she typed any of that. Like her bio and stuff, I don't know. It's just a really messed up and all around weird situation. Tell me what you guys think. And yeah, that was the end of the video. Like, comment, subscribe if you want. Give me your opinion. If you want to talk about how much you dislike Jason, I'm here for that as well. Talk about anything really. And yeah, bye.